Welcome to the Holiday Pros Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Sutherland.
And I am Heather Lunderbold, and we are here to help you master the business of Christmas.
Okay, yahoo!
Okay, all right, back to the topic. Right, so this topic is actually something that I've struggled with my entire career, 26 years. I've had a problem scaling my company because I just don't have either enough or now it's moved to the right people, right? So when I first started 26 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. And it's hard to figure out or even remember that long ago. But I do know that I was just kind of grabbing friends, hey, come decorate the street. Because for one, I didn't even know really what I was doing. So I wasn't doing the level and the luxury scale that I do now. I wasn't really doing that necessarily, 20 to 26 years ago. And so that kind of worked. I kind of got away with it, back then. And then throughout the years, I, decided, well, I probably should look into interior designers because they have some level of creativity. So I was able to gather, some people up from the industry of interior design. And then again, I was still pulling friends. It was a nightmare. I mean, they wouldn't show up, even though they're my friends. Like I've learned you don't want to do that. You don't want to cross over friends with a business that needs actually a trained person. So I can't send a friend into a luxury home and tell them to do this design. There needs to be some training behind it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
like go
yeah,
into that a little bit more because I think that's important. The things like the reality check, right? Like what happens with team. This is the thing that I notice, especially for business owners and not even just new business owners. I've counseled other business owners who have moved into like their brain is saying, yes, I know I need team. I know I need to scale. I cannot, this is not sustainable by myself. But the pain of bringing that team member on, it can like derail them because there's now you basically gave yourself a second job. You've got to train them, you've got to manage them, you've got to manage the expectations of the clients. There's this like juggling act, and it almost feels like a mistake in some cases. Some people have said like, I don't know if I even want to do that. I'm just happier doing it by myself. But at the end of the day, they truly know it takes a team. You cannot do it by yourself. Like, what were some of the things that you ran across with people in the beginning and how did you deal with it? Like, I think that's the part that, really is important is what did you do about it?
right. So there's a couple of good points that you mentioned there. So one, yes, there's a lot. There can be painstaking processes that you have to put in place when you cross over from yourself as an individual to hiring people. And you can do it as an employee and you can do it as a 1099, right? Which are very different. So through my career, I've had to learn the difference, first of all, between that. But what I'll say is it doesn't have to be painstaking. There are systems, there are ways to hire people. And if you want to scale, you have to do it. There's no way to slice the pie. You have to have people. So what I've learned is instead of focusing on how painstaking it is, flip that around and study on how to be a better leader. The better the more leadership you provide to your staff or your team or your employees or your contractors, that's going to be the systematic plan that's going to finesse everything, right? So first of all, leadership is super important. You
That's
have to be the
huge.
leader and
Yeah.
they're going to look to you and you have to create culture within your organization and you have to create and I'll be honest, I didn't do that. In fact, I probably still don't have the perfect culture inside of my company because I didn't even know. I've never worked for anybody. I've never done a corporate job. So I didn't understand that. Now that I've focused on the leadership portion, that is now what I'm learning from my coach. And that will make everything better. So it's systems, but there's more that goes into it. So
Yeah. You're talking about the mindset. And you're so right, Heather. I mean, you totally just hit that nail on the head. And I want to like hammer it a little bit because and bring it home for people. There is a mental shift that comes into this feeling of like, all of the control factor. I think that's the number one thing that I see is like a business owner who feels like they have to control and micromanage everything of their business.
Right.
Not to say they shouldn't be aware and managing it, but that I need to be the one doing it piece. And that mindset shift of like, okay, but I can be a better leader and I could grow people and being willing to, and this is the scary part, and I think this is why people get hung up, is the scary part is like letting them go, right? They might make a mistake. And yes, they might. And what are you going to do about it? And that's the part that I think what you're back to your whole systems. If you think through that and you have your systems in place, then that definitely helps to mitigate it. But at the end of the day, mistakes are going to happen. Something's going to come up. But how do you handle that as a leader is ultimately, I think, what changes the game and totally moves you into that next level space. You're so right.
Right. Well, the saying is it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it or react to it, right?
Hmm.
But you can also take actions before things even happen. So you can have a great onboarding process. Hire the right people, not just hire people. And in the past, that's what I did. I would just hire anybody. Hello, I'm hiring.
Do you have two
Like,
hands and two
yeah,
feet and some
exactly. Right.
teeth? Like,
Do
let's
you want
go.
to show up and put some bulbs on a tree? Like, and that kind of worked. But really, I mean, when you're working in the luxury space, that I've been accused from my clients. They're like, hey, are you training on the job? I'm paying you by the hour. I've been caught red-handed doing that, right? So I've learned through the process, of literal years and just doing this. And so it was my reaction to that though. I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, actually, yeah, I was training on the job. So now I'm working on implementing videos that the or the design team has to watch before they start the season if they're brand new. Now I'm lucky enough where I have a lot of designers come back. So they've been through seasons. They know my clients. My clients know them. That is the sweet spot because you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. The heavy lifting is in the beginning, as any employer is going to go through when you bring somebody new on, right? The onboarding process. But getting back to the topic is what if I don't have enough people? In the academy, I teach all this. So, we have.
But when you say how do you know? One question people might be wondering is like, for example, you've told me just because in the years that I've known you, I get to I'm like the fly on the wall that gets to hear about the business behind the scenes. Like,
Yes,
oh
you
my
do.
gosh, I just got this call. This person wants their house done. It's like a $10,000 job and this is so exciting, but I don't even know how I'm going to do it because I was already booked. Like that moment of panic, like you've been doing it a long time. You have resources and you have people. What do you say to people who are just getting started that might be like in that oh crap moment, right?
Right. Well, I know exactly what I say to people because this is what I teach.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of the things we focus on in the academy. So in the mentoring, I tell my students, don't worry about those issues. Take the job. Worry about income first. Take the job, then we'll figure out how to solve the problem. Okay,
Hmm.
because I know how to solve all these problems. I've done it for decades. So I have the solutions, I have the answers. Where you need to come in is you need to get the jobs, right? And then this is my term that I coined, like wear the fur coat before you own it. And that's literally how it goes. And when you live in abundance, it will just come. But I have coaches, right? I have people, I look up to people that are, running 40, $50 million businesses because I don't know how to do that. I'll be honest, I don't run a $40 million company. How do you do that? Right. Well, I guarantee you they're not doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
And so, what are they doing differently that I'm not doing? Right? How did they scale to that point? And how did they train their staff or their employees or whomever is doing the work? And then, how do they manage that as the top tier person, the one that owns the company? How are you managing those people all the way through the person maybe that you just hired yesterday and they don't know
Yeah.
anything about?
And it really does go back again. I'm going to come back to the mindset thing. Like what you just said about the fur coat. I think it was Brendan Burchard who I heard say something like, you really need to ask yourself, who do you need to become? So if you're at a point in your business where you want to get to that
Yeah.
next level? Who do you need to become to be able to wear the fur coat? So imagine the fur coat on you. What does it feel like? Who are you? What characteristics do you have? And then you can embody that, and that sets the tone and really does help move things forward. You're so right about that. But it is true. Like, you do need to ask yourself, like, who do you need to become to get to that next level? And study the people who are there. So that's awesome. I was just thinking about this, like, just from a practical standpoint, that there's a terminology that new people may not know, and that is subcontracted work. It reminds me of this one time when we started the solar electric company, when I joined in with my partner Rick. It was just him and a guy. And he was so afraid to bring people on. He had tried it and he felt like it failed. Like I was telling you earlier, right? Like, oh no, that's not going to work out, because he was afraid of training his competition. I heard that in the Christmas industry, by the way. People, that is a definite thought, like, I'm training my competition. Or he's like, I don't know if I could afford them, those kinds of things, because sometimes employees are not going to be as fast as you. What you, Heather, could get done in 3 hours might take them six. And how do
True.
you've put the processes in place, but in the beginning, that was probably costing some extra money that you didn't anticipate. Like, these are some real things. And so he was really reluctant to starting to bring people on, especially when we're in the electrical industry, because, that's a journey. These people are already trained. They went to trade school. They're already trained. And so all he was going to do was basically teach him his specialized knowledge, right? So he could duplicate himself in the field. So there was some real fear there, but he felt safe with this other electrical guy. This was a friend of his. And I said, well, why don't we just sub out? Let's focus, like you said, get the jobs and then figure it out. So we got the jobs, we subbed it out. Almost all of our, I would say 80% of our jobs were subbed out. And what's crazy, and I showed him this after, I don't know, a few months of doing it. I said, look, you're still profitable and you just paid this guy his full wage of $100 an hour. You can make more money by hiring somebody who's going to get paid $40 an hour. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it was all, he had to see the numbers, and then all of a sudden it was like clicked, and then we were off to the races. It was working. And I think that's the piece that, like, if you're ever in a position where you have more jobs than you can handle, you can sub it out to other people. Have you ever done that in your business, where you either worked for another company that had too many jobs, or had to work with another Christmas company to help you? Or did you
Yeah.
just always find people?
Oh, no, that's how I got started. So in the beginning, that's exactly what I did. There was no way. I mean, I fell into this industry by accident. And it was because there were two companies that came to me to ask me to work for them. So I did work a couple of seasons before I started my own business. And I do recommend that. So work on my design team, or find somebody that needs help, or partner up with another designer, work together if you're both still new or something like that. Like, there's lots of ways we can slice and dice this. But what I've learned, I went from me and another person. Well, first working for somebody else, I kind of learned the ropes. Then I had a few jobs, so I would bring somebody else on. And then now I have 10 designers that work for me. And I've had seasons where I run 4 crews in a day. And that's the numbers game, right? So you start to figure out, oh gosh, like, if I'm on the job, I'm making this much. If I'm sending 4 crews, I'm quadrupling my daily income,
Hmm.
with the jobs. Now you have to play a different role though, right? And because now you have to move into management. When you're running 4 crews, you're making sure they're showing up and that they're leaving on time, or they're not there too long, because we've had that. I'm calling, why are you guys still there? What's taking so long? And so you kind of have to micromanage that a little bit.
Yeah.
But, the better in the training process, the onboarding process, the better you get at that, or partnering with me to facilitate that, that's going to expedite the job. It's just a whole different ball game, that I have found. But one important thing to consider though is your legacy, right? What if something happens to you? What if you get hurt? What if you fall off a ladder? How are you replaceable, or is your business going to collapse because you can't show up for work that day? And so that's what really, after I had my baby, I'm like, I can't do this anymore, like I used to before I had her. And I need to be home sometimes, things come up, and then moving through all the years, I got to get her to school, and so that's when I started really focusing on subcontracting and
Mm,
doing the 1099. So I don't do employees. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But when you subcontract, that's also another ball. You have to do it correctly. And there's a way that you need, and there's rules that you need to follow. So you have to
yeah.
really educate yourself if you're going to be doing that.
Yeah, and every state has different rules. That's what makes it a little
Yep.
interesting because and they change all the time. I mean, I remember years ago when we had our flooring company in Phoenix, that was when it was so nice back then. Like you could just pretty much bring anybody to your team and it was so like, I don't know, easy. And then they wanted to regulate everything. So, all of a sudden now we had to, go through all these hoops and whatnot. But it was, I mean, it was doable. It just made it a lot harder for, quote, the little guy, right? Like it was easier for like the Home Depots and these large companies that had the extra income and capacity to be able to go through all of that. But there are loopholes and workarounds if you know who to talk to help you get that set up. I guess loopholes probably isn't the right way, but there's workarounds. That's probably the best thing to say. And we do
Well,
encourage you guys to always, I don't know about you, Heather, but like I definitely like to have, some sort of either a business mentor who works in my state and I can navigate those things, or have a consult with a business attorney when you're setting it up. You don't need to like keep them on retainer, but you can like certainly talk to them to make sure you're doing things by the book, or a CPA can also be very helpful. They know a lot of those rules, so that might be a good resource too.
okay. So one thing I'll recommend is SCORE. So
Oh.
I have a lot of SCORE mentors that I work for, that I work with, and it's completely free. And score.com, I think, or is it score.org? If you just Google SCORE, you can go there, and there are mentors that are all over the United States in every single state. So you can request, whatever state you're in, and then whatever topic that you need help on. So I have a business attorney. I have actually two SCORE business attorneys that I work with, and lots of other topics. I have a marketing girl that I work with, but these are people that volunteer their time and they are experts in their field. And so it's free. It's literally free advice. And they're already retired. So they've already had their careers, they know the answers to these things. But the information that I was able to gather too was from my insurance agent.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her, I said, well, what do I need to do? What contracts do I need to have in place with my 1099 contractors to make sure I'm covered properly for insurance purposes? She walked me through the entire process, and I have specific forms that all of my people have to sign before they even step foot on the job, right? They've got to have their W-9s, they've got to have all the things, right? And there's these contracts that they sign off on, and I go through it with them. I don't just hand it over and say, here you go. I
Yeah.
make sure that they understand it and that I understand, what I'm providing them in the first place. So in conjunction with an attorney and your insurance agent, and if you don't have one, you can reach out to me because I partner with Hartford, and they have offered to be a representative for Christmas Design Institute. They have been amazing. They are so helpful. I absolutely love them. And I go directly to Hartford. I
That's
don't even
awesome.
work with an agent. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's phenomenal.
They're
Yeah, they are.
wealth of knowledge.
That's a good insight for sure. And I forgot about SCORE. It is score.org. I looked it up while you were talking, so people
Okay.
listening can go
Yep.
check it out.
Highly
That's true.
recommended.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard.
So much information. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a pretty solid episode. I mean, I know it's only been about 20 minutes, but we definitely covered a lot of ground. I think at the end of the day, it's just a matter of getting started. I mean, every entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart, It's definitely something that you gotta, as I say, put on your big girl panties and like hit it, like go straight at it. That's been you're putting on the luxury coat. I'm talking about big girl panties. No, when I worked in Mary Kay, that was what they talked about. Because you know what? It's definitely something if you're just getting into it, it's not just gonna be like, You don't just kind of start and stop. You want to go all in. And when you do that, you're going to face challenges. And I think that's the piece that for me, I mean, and I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. I think that's the always the most inspiring is the people who like it was a non-negotiable. This wasn't an option. Like their business, their it was their calling. It was like this is happening. And when they finally made up their mind that no matter what, this is where it was at, then they finally break through the success. I don't know. I don't know personally. I feel like we're going to all be faced with something and it's going to give us that test. And then at the end, it's like, how does it shake out? Well, it only shakes out if you stick with it and you persevere. And that's just the way life goes and business.
Right. Well, in partnership with you and with Biz in a Box, I was running my company crazy. I mean, when we started working together, I mean, you even said it. You're like, "What are you doing?" Like, entrepreneurship is hard, but it doesn't have to be that hard, right? Like, there nowadays we have tools and we have resources and we have people that can help us navigate these tough subjects. And boy, I mean, I wish I had me, 26 years ago. I wish I knew what I knew, right? That's always the thing. I wish I would have known, but you can't when you're first starting out. When you're young, you're 18, 20, 30, however, it doesn't even matter if you're 60 and you're starting, right? Martha Stewart started her billion-dollar company at 50, right? And so it doesn't matter the age, but there are things that I've put in place to help people. So the Designer for Hire program also exists in the association, the Professional Association of Holiday Designers. So if you're a company and you're thinking this whole episode is crazy, I don't even want to deal with this, right? Well, there's that. There's the Designer for Hire program, and there's also the Academy. So there's resources out there. There's tons of coaches, people that can help you. SCORE, as we mentioned. So, don't be afraid of entrepreneurship. It can be super luxurious because you get to wear the fur coat once you make it, but also it can be a lot of fun and it can create a lot of freedom.
That's for sure.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, don't be afraid of it. It's time to wrap this up and tie it with a bow. You're listening to the Holiday Pros podcast. We're helping you master the business of Christmas.
And if you're liking what you hear, my friends, please subscribe to the show wherever you're listening and be sure to tune in next week. Until then, visit thechristmasdesigninstitute.com if you're ready to launch your Christmas business.